harmful algal blooms be predicted? So you talked about when you had ratios where one type of organism was dominating, or just a couple, that was more likely for blooms to occur. But could you talk about other factors you see in the environment that are sort of ripe for a bloom to occur, predictive factors?
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly temperature is a huge one. You know, I can predict for the water bodies I've been studying for a long time that are prone to blue-green algae blooms. I can predict the start of these events with, within a couple of weeks usually. And again, it's a temperature trigger. It gets warm enough. The algal community goes through a succession, and finally it's time for the blue-green algae.
So what temperature, where are you seeing that? What's that, where you know it's coming?
Yeah, I mean, the water body that I have in mind that we've studied the most, it's usually like around 20 degrees centigrade. So, you know, somewhere around 70 degrees or so. But again, it's partly dependent on the water body, because there's other co-factors that are important, and the types of blue-green algae you have present. But so certainly, yeah, how can you predict it? Well, you can predict it based on temperature. And then certainly what I've found in general is that if a water body has had a blue-green algae bloom once, it tends to recur. So that's, that is also something that can, be a trigger. And then the other thing is you can measure nutrient levels. And in general, there's a higher probability of having blue-green algae blooms when the levels of phosphorus are higher. Again, I did emphasize nitrogen is also important, but, historically, if you know the levels of phosphorus in a water body, if we knew the total phosphorus concentrations in a dozen water bodies, we could predict which ones would be most vulnerable to the blue-green algae, and incidentally, it'd be the ones with the highest levels. I'll also just mention salinity. I know some of your water bodies have a range of salinity, so certainly these are generally freshwater phenomenon, but they, depending on the type of blue-green algae, you can have, salinities below 15, you start to become vulnerable to these sorts of events. But again, it depends a little bit on what the indigenous blue-green algae population is like.
Okay.